Hi everybody, it's Mark Hanna, Hothead Thundermouth, unscripted, uncensored, unapologetic, and psychologically immune from social media scoring. This video, I'm going to bring you another installment of Shut Up and Playtests. What am I playtesting? Well, I'm using WO15 Liberation Day, current roar ratings, 28 German wins, 22 Russian wins, to try out my rules for VBM Freeze limitations as well as Skulking limitations. This is a good scenario for this. There's some buildings that need to be protected with skulking areas, which would be ideal for both sides to prevent attacks and or counterattacks. And instead of being able to do that, it's better to fight it out, which I prefer, actually. It makes the game more fun, in my view, unless people like and enjoy skulking when they play ASL. I'm sure it's always quite a bit of fun to move your units back deeper into the forest and move them back in the advanced phase, and do the same thing in buildings. I mean, I'm sure that's the most fun thing you've ever done in ASL, isn't it? So that's what I'm trying to eliminate, is that particular tactic, which wasn't even realistic and never actually happened. You can argue, well, this represents people hiding in the back of the rooms. But once you're spotted, this isn't realistic. I kind of changed the skulking rule that if you hunker down, you get a +2 if you're concealed on top of any TEM that you've got. And if you're not concealed, it's only a +1. This encourages you that if you're already concealed and it's because you shot at somebody, you might as well shoot back because you're only getting an extra +1 to protect yourself by hunkering down. Concealed units, however, become much harder to take out because not only do you get the terrain, and if it's a stone building, that would be a +5, but they're also halved when they're attacking you. It makes it very difficult, in my opinion, to take out some hunkering down units that are deliberately staying concealed. So that was a realization I came to during this playtest. So I'm going to do a few videos from the playtest, not turn by turn, move by move, or anything like that. Just some interruptions every here and there, turn 2, turn 3, turn 6. Several videos to describe what's going on in the action. I will say this is an excellent scenario. Highly recommend it. Really fun. Both sides get a chance to attack. Both have some interesting VC. On one hand, let me show you here. I think I've got a setup here. There we go. So here you can see, let me get my little tools. So the Germans are set up to defend these buildings, this village or city. And it's really more than the village with all these stone buildings, I'd say, but so there's 7 multi-hex stone buildings, most of which are row houses. And these, basically the Russians need to take 4 of these, or the Russians alternatively can take out this at any time and be able to take what they call the rail station here. And as I mentioned in an earlier video, you have this rail line coming down here. Well, it goes both ways, I'm sure. But basically, that adds some... It's a ground level railroad, so it doesn't really do much in terms of stopping or hindering movement except for vehicles crossing the tracks or going down the tracks. There's really not a lot of opportunity for that here, although it could have happened. But it just looks nicer. It makes the map feel... although that train station is pretty far away from the village. I don't know why, but oh, whatever. Okay. So, yeah, nice there, isn't it? Okay, so coming on board here, you've got these Russians. These guys have a mission to take this particular village. And then you got a bunch of partisans over here, and they're going to go after this railway station. Okay, so that's And then the Germans get some stuff coming in that can either split up to help out both sides. And then there's some T-30. They're over here on turn 4. The T-34-85s come. Probably called in as a response to the Germans bringing tanks into the battle themselves. So it's a good ebb and flow. Really fun scenario. So I had fun playing it as well as playtesting. All right, so without further ado, let's get into it. Thanks for listening. Please like and subscribe. I don't have one of those floating banners that come across. Like and subscribe, I'm sure that it would probably benefit me to have something like that. So just please go ahead and like it if you like it. If you don't like it, don't hit the like button. I don't think you'll have any trouble with that. Subscriptions are welcome as well. Good. All right, enjoy. Thanks a lot for watching. Hi everybody, Mark Hanna, Hothead Thundermouth here. Another shut up and playtest effort here. So we're going to be playing Liberation Day. When I say we, I mean I, of course. Liberation Day, WO15. A pretty good scenario here. You can sort of see it. Don't have exactly the right zoom set up here. But this is a winter offensive scenario. I'm not a big fan of these. They generally don't seem to have the play balance that you need, but sometimes they do. It's like any scenario, I suppose. Anyway, decent scenario to play VBM Freeze versus Skulking, because you're trying to basically take this portion of the city here, the well-fought-over board 10. This is the Eddie Zeman boards. I can't remember what changes on this. It's not a lot. But anyway, big fight for this. So Skulking will come into play. VBM Freeze will come into play, although these tanks aren't that strong for that. Then up here, you've got the partisans swinging in from the forest that might try to take on this railroad station here. Got to have some verisimilitude. Some nice railways on here. Always looks good. Gotta love the way ASL looks. Just trying to play this without some of these rules that kind of really ruin the game, if you think about it in too much. VBM Freeze is not how tanks assaulted buildings, and Skulking is not how units defended. So, trying to fix those rules. I was thinking about adding Mark McGilchrist's command control moves, but when I looked at them, though, they didn't seem to be that much different from the Sassel rules, although they're ELR-based instead of morale-based. There's something to be said for that, because independent command control could be dependent upon the NCOs and individual squads. That kind of makes sense, but it doesn't always make sense, because the Germans had more of an ethic of the pushing down their individual initiatives well down the ladder compared to other nations. So Germans with an ELR of 3 would not represent their independence of command. So I'm not going to use McGilchrist's rules. I like that he's making the effort, though. So we're going to play this scenario. The Germans get these reinforcements coming in on turn 2 over here. So because of that, I'm going to be, let me zoom back out a little bit here. The Russians have 2 entry points down here. You can see, I should be able to see them set up. And then the partisans over in the forested area that are going to be coming in towards this area, they have about a phase line of 3 to get over to help out in the town. That's probably not what they're going to be fighting. The question is, against 9 partisan squads, can these guys hold out whatever I put over here? I had to split up these defenders with these defenders, and then I've got to bring in these reinforcements. Reinforcements really have 2 fast avenues, of course, using roads. We've got 3 tanks that can load up with infantry. It's 1944. They can come in this way into the town. They can come in this way to the town. So the Russians will have Su-76s trying to stop those kinds of moves. And I know those are dummies, but you're not supposed to know. Okay. As we're playing solitaire, there's always the, okay, got to think both sides kind of mentality, but I've been playing solitaire ASL long enough without the Sassel rules. I like Sassel, but it's so time consuming and so tedious with all the dice rolls for the dice bots. What I like about these Sassel rules is the command control, except they're based upon proximity of leaders, and so there's never enough leaders in Sassel to play a regular ASL scenario. It's just not possible. Because everything would be out of command control. You got to cover these buildings. You got 2 leaders, and 2 leaders have a range of 2 for command control. There's nothing to be command controlled. If you're not going to use the leaders for anything but command control, which means you really can't use them for rallying. With Mark McGilchrist's version, he gives the leaders a rally range, which is nice. But I don't think that the range of a leader should be dependent upon its leadership DRM. It's not like a 10-3 leader could shout 3 hexes and an 8-0 leader couldn't. It's not logical. He's trying to get away from leaders being used for fire grouping and making kill stacks, which is what people use leaders for now. That's true. That's kind of built into the game. I mean, look, squad leader, leader modifiers, independent movement from the get-go. There was never an intent to have command control in ASL from the beginning. What I didn't like was, the skulking and the VBM freezing that went on, which is easier to take care of and not affect the scenarios quite as much. Command control, I'd love to overlay this with command control, but I don't see how you're ever going to be able to do that and still play a regular scenario. Whereas with my rules here, I think it's possible. I think it's possible to play with the skulking rules and the VBM freeze rules and still play with the same number of turns. That's why I'm playtesting it, though. I'm going to see if that's true. So anyway, it's all set up. On turn 4, the Russians will be getting some T-34-85s. And then turn 2, the German reinforcements come in. So I do like the way the scenario is designed. I like the multiple prong attacks, multiple defensive points. Who designed this? Shelling. Yeah, he's usually pretty good. And he didn't come up with a cutesy name like he usually does. Liberation Day sounds really good for this. So we'll see what happens with this. I will not be doing probably point-by-point, play-by-play, move-by-move videos, just end-of-turn summaries and make notes of anything interesting. Otherwise, the series tends to drag on too much, so it's a 6-turn scenario. I'll probably do 3 turns, send in a video, do the last 3 turns, if it's even going to take that long. So a couple more videos coming on this. Thanks for listening to this intro video. Please like and subscribe. You got to say the usual hokey jokey stuff. Like, subscribe, comment, make your voice heard, make it easier for people to see my videos. Right there, you've got the commercial. Right then, thanks a lot for listening and watching. Bye. Hello, folks. A quick wee hours recap of turn 2. A very exciting turn, as there was a number of close combats here, as the Russians have approached and infiltrated the tip of the village. I think I've decided that for hunkering down, units that are not concealed should only get a +1 extra low visibility DRM. This would make stone buildings a +4, wooden buildings a +3. I think that's a little more reasonable. They shouldn't be quite as good as stone bunkers, which are +5.
and you're already considered pretty much hunkering down more than anything else in a stone bunker. But if you're concealed, you do get the +2. So that's the only refinement I've thought of so far. So the reinforcements have come in for the Germans. As you can see, a big stack of units is coming up here quickly with a tank. On this front, though, I decided to try to protect the attack. The partisans are making an all-out attack on the farm here. And one of the things I didn't do as the Germans was put a leader over here. Actually, I realized later that I put all 3 leaders here. And once the Russians found that out, they decided, well, I decided as the Russians to take advantage of my mistake as the Germans. And so they're approaching with a lot of gusto this farm over here. So that forced me to make an attack, and I had to do a combined infantry and tank attack on this Su-76 that I moved over there. The other one's over here, also supporting the attack on the farm. And I lost one of my Panzer IVs in that effort, but because the Su-76 can only shoot its main gun, I was able to run infantry straight up to it and defeat it in close combat. So that was a reasonable exchange for the Germans, as they really needed to force this issue here. They brought in some tank riders here who had to bail out. They survived the bailout, and now they're trying to protect the flanks of the city, but I still don't have a leader over there. So rather an exciting turn. We'll be moving into turn 3, so scanning back out. The Russians will be trying to control the city. They have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the buildings, which is going to force the Germans to counterattack. And say the Russians have an edge over here. We'll see if the partisans can be beat back over here. But on turn 4, some T-34s are coming in. So it's looking a bit difficult for the Germans at this stage. So that's the summary at turn 2. Thanks for watching. Okay, folks, turn 3, start at turn 4. The Germans have brought in some troops to do a counterattack here, and luckily for them, you can see that the Russian machine guns have run out of ammunition for the moment. But the Russians do have 1, 2, 3, 4 of the buildings. Well, they don't quite have this one yet. That's a long-lasting melee that they have the advantage in. Over here, at the beginning of turn 4, these T-34s will come in, and I think I'm going to rush one all the way up here and do an ESB to try to get on the flank of this thing. Because, and I'm talking about this tank up here, so we're looking at coming all the way up here. Got 16 movement points to here, then 2 more points to stop and change turret, vehicle covered arc, come in on the back side of that vehicle. So that's going to be what they need to do, because the Germans were able to get all their reinforcements up into the railway station. And although there's a lot of partisans and demo charges and things like that, they need to take out that tank. They're going to have to commit one of those T-34s to that. Probably should commit both. Over here, the Germans came in and ESB'd their tank. I don't usually do all this ESB. So that they forced this to take motion. Is either going to have to shoot it out, hull down, or go in motion and get out of the way. That's what I decided to do. At this stage, the Russians are winning the scenario. And they just need to hold on at this point. But there's 3 more turns. And there's some tough German units coming in to crack back into this building. If they can get into this building before this melee is over, they'll still control this building. So that's something that the Russians don't want to see happen. So
We've got a lot of powerful German units here. In fact, I would say firepower-wise, now the Germans are in the driver's seat on this side of the buildings. So, however, the Russians still have an edge on trying to push this stack out of this building. You've got a concealed guy that can go there, then advance in. Won't be concealed, though, when he goes in. Try to take one more building as a security zone for the Russians. So it's an exciting halfway through the game. Pretty exciting. Playing out in a very exciting fashion. So we'll see how it goes from here, starting on turn 4. Thanks for listening. All right, it's German turn 6. And they ran into a strange situation, actually. I was looking here. What happened is these Germans came in. They all went berserk. The 9-1 went berserk, and he changed all of them over. They had to drop the 2 mediums and run straight at the unit that they saw. I suppose they could have probably run this way and that way. Probably should have. Well, once they got to here, that would have been closer. But it doesn't matter. They got gunned down here by some really low rolls. And so the German counterattack over here is over. And essentially, that's the end for them. But what's more interesting, as a little bit of an aside, is that this line of sight from the hex to the tank was what triggered the berserk. Otherwise, it would have just been battle hardening. And the LOS from here to here is clear. Now, normally, I use this kind of device, which is a little thick. Technically, the rules call for thread. The rules themselves say use sewing thread, which is thinner, harder to focus on. Okay, so when I first checked the LOS, it was clear using the thicker strand, and I've been using this a long time without using thread, just more convenient. So when I checked it, it was kind of close. This BB6 here could have blocked it, but it wasn't blocking it. So then I checked it over on Vassal. And on Vassal, now keep in mind this is a 10Z, and I've had this trouble with 10Z before. The registration on 10Z or 17Z isn't the same on Vassal as it is in real life. Now the rule, as far as I'm concerned, is if the real life line of sight is clear or not, you use the maps that are real. You don't use Vassal. So if you check this line of sight on Vassal, it's blocked. And you can see that the woods in BB6 is closer to the wall on the Vassal module than it is actually in the real board. Now, I don't know if my board's different, and you guys can check your boards and let me know. But it was because of that line of sight. Otherwise, the Germans basically rallying the attack group that had been broken would have come probably and tried to take this building over. They had 2 turns to try to take a building back. That was the only way they were going to win. So, since that whole stack got decimated and destroyed, I think the only thing that's left is the wounded, pinned leader who, by virtue of wounding, became pinned and therefore not part of the target anymore. Now, over here, I suppose he should have stayed as part of the target. They were on the same movement point, weren't they? But anyway, so the leader probably would have been destroyed as well. Over here, the Germans held them off. I don't think that they would lose this farm. This isn't the farm, sorry. It's the railroad station. This hex will probably take back. There's a bunch of broken. Half of this force is broken. There's 4 broken squads. This melee, even if it's probably won by the partisans,
will net them the stone building, but the Germans will still have 2 of these buildings left by the end of turn 6. But yeah, so they lost the vehicle over here. Actually, I think I moved illegally. The vehicle actually came out here to try to create smoke by getting blown up. But the tank took it out with an easy shot. So that was it. Really no chances here for the Germans at this point. As an assessment of the scenario, I think it's really a fun one. I'm not so sure how balanced it is. I got to look at it on Roar. I'll post that information when I post this video. But essentially, one of the things I noticed when you play with the skulking rules, my skulking rules, it reminds you more of regular squad leader units are just basically continue to fight rather than fall back and skulk and then go back into the buildings. There's plenty of skulking opportunities on this board. Russian units here, for example, could skulk back to here. That's not the best place, but anybody here can skulk back to here. These Russians can skulk back to here. The Germans can skulk back to there. So there could have been constant skulking going on. Instead, they stayed on the firing line, and that was more fun. Skulking isn't really fun. There's nothing fun about skulking, right? So I would say that that might have made the German counterattack harder, although the Russians couldn't skulk, so they were exposed to fire, but the Germans' fire just never succeeded. They kept rolling basically 9s, 10s, and 11s for their prep fire and defensive fire. That wasn't going to be enough to break them. They were trying to use spray fire here when they could. There was actually a German hero underneath this prep marker. So the German heroes, it's interesting, heroes are not marked for spray fire. I think they should have been, but they're not. So they can't spray fire. And I guess they don't want you to apply their DRM to 2 different stacks. So anyway, the skulking rules seem to work. The VBM rules, there was no real opportunity to try some VBM Freeze. There weren't enough vehicles, and the Russian vehicles got taken out early up here. 1 German up there. This tank battle was won by the Germans. And then the Germans took out another Su-76 here because I didn't notice when I parked it there that the LOS from the bypass tank actually can still see that hex. I shot my coaxial machine gun and traced it, and boom. So that Su-76, they have thin armor. They really can't take a hit. So at the end of the day, no real problems. Now, Mark McGilchrist has come up with some command control rules that look interesting. I'd like to play with some command control. And I don't know how that would work out as well. His command control rules, though, mitigate the idea that your 9-2 leader, for example, doesn't get a -2 on fire attacks anymore. It only gets a 2 radius for command and 2 radius for rallies. So they're more command-related units, not, heroic firing units. I kind of dislike that idea, but maybe it's just because I'm used to ASL over the years that I get a 9-2 leader. I get a -2 on my stack of firing guys. So there's also the command control rules in Sassel. Both of these, in my view, suffer from the idea that leaders are stuck in a radius to control their units. And I think you need some runners, some hypothetical runners that can take the messages further away, myself. Not a big fan of that. Also, radio communications did play a role, and it played a role on the national level. So everybody might remember the paratroopers in Arnhem who had the wrong radio. Of course, they were out of command control from the top levels. So that kind of affected perhaps their performance in the tactical battle. I don't know. I think the Americans use radios in the tactical level more than anybody else. So perhaps in ASL, radios shouldn't be a factor. But, fixing ASL for command control and then being able to play existing scenarios, I think you can fix Skulking. I think you can fix VBM Freeze and still play existing scenarios. With the command control rules, I don't know. I think you have to develop those as an SSR or play Sassel. So I haven't done any Sassel lately, actually ever for the video series. I'm constantly drawn to it. I knew there's a new Sassel module coming out sometime, so I might wait for that. In the meantime, signing off here. So this play test is over. Liberation Day, Winter Offensive 15. And thanks for watching.